Okay, we are recording for educational purposes, just to let you know. Okay, we're all set.
Okay, so this evening we're going to do an introduction to the facilitator training for empathy circles. We'll be here till, overall it'll be a 2-hour cafe. And during that time, we'll do a round of introductions together. And then I'll just run through the outline of the evening. And Dean will show us, he will screen share and go through information about the training with you. And we will split out into breakout rooms. And Edwin is also one of the facilitators here this evening. He's behind all this work. He's been working on the culture of empathy for the last 10, 14 years, I think, building a culture of empathy across the world. And he's supporting us here tonight as well. And Larry is one of our trainee facilitators, not trainee trainers, as is Graham. So let's go round and introduce ourselves. So I'm Anne Jordan, I'm in Minehead in England, and I'm now one of the trainers for the facilitation, and I'm involved with Empathy Circles in XR, in global support and in the UK. And I will pass to Dean. Dean, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Dean from the Southwest in Plymouth in the United Kingdom. I'm one of the Empathy Circle trainers here for the Empathy Cafe within XR UK. I'm also involved in doing the Empathy Circle work around the globe. May I say that we all start off as learners, and after doing the training process several times, we can then move up to becoming a trainer of the trainers, and then eventually we'll be doing the role which I am doing this evening, which is the technical guy. So this is my first time as technical guy. So if everything goes snafu, I do apologise, and I'm sorry that you're my lab rats, but with my love and full heart and cooperation, hopefully we can get through this unscathed. I'll pass on to Larry. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dean. So I'm Larry in Florida, and the reason I'm interested in empathy circles is I think it's part of being a human being, fully human, fully present, actually listening to what someone says without being super distracted like most of us are, multitasking. And unfortunately, not being fully present, I'm considering to be one of the snafus of human communication, and the empathic communication style of the empathy circle is what I'm calling the missing link in human beings being able to live in peace with one another. So I'll stop there without going on and on and on, anonymous. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. And now I'd like to pass to Linda.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, I'm from XR Cymru, which is Wales, which is a little aspiring independent aspiring to be independent part of the United Kingdom. And I've been involved in a training cohort previously, and I'm kind of revisiting the training at the moment and hoping to learn a bit more. And I'm running the odd empathy circle in Cymru at the moment, and it's really great to be amongst all these wonderful people from across the globe. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Linda. Ron, would you like to go next?
Tēnā koutou. My name's Ron Findlay. I live in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I acknowledge Tatiaho as the indigenous people of my area. I'm a member of XR and I'm interested in this as a means of drawing people together rather than creating divisions. Kia ora.
Thank you, Ron. Yigal, would you like to go next? Introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is Yigal. Shai spoke to me about this meeting today, so I don't know exactly what I am being. It is about what. He just told me some words. I'm a philosopher. I have a doctorate in religion and culture. And practice many years my philosophy in companies, what we call the coach in companies. And I'm practicing for many years Zen Buddhism from Zen Soto, from the Master Dogen. That's all. I don't know nothing about what you will speak today.
Thank
I came
you, Yigal.
as a curious person.
Welcome. And Shai, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hello. Well, I'm interested in practicing many years NVC and focusing, which are also methods based on empathic listening. I guess you all know them. I have a dream of creating a community based on empathic listening. I think that this is the base, and I want it more in my life. I feel it as a need. So, and also the idea of this project to spread empathic listening everywhere we can, in schools, in the government, in the countries, everywhere. It's very inspiring. I think it's radical and right. So I would like to help in that.
Thank you, Shai. Tiaho, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Tēnā tātou katoa. Greetings to everyone. Yes, my name's Tiaho. On my mum's side, I'm Kaitahu and Katikuri. That's my tribe and my clan. I'm also Te Ati'o, where Ron lives. And my dad's Celtic in origin, but he lives in Australia. My interest in Empathy Cafe lies, as many of you have said, with the deep listening, with the empathy practice and receptivity to that, and also the possibility of transformation amongst ourselves. I'm interested in Dominic Barter's work in restorative practices from Brazil, and I'm interested to see how this Empathy Cafe can spread in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and also as a correlation to tribal, within tribal and constitutional transformation here. Yeah, I'll pass on back to Anne.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiaho. Joelle, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, everybody. I'm Joelle. I'm in Portland, Oregon, in the US. This is a new practice for me, but just feels profoundly important and sort of the foundation from what I've always had a sense of working from, but it really just clarifies some things for me. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joelle. And Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm in Eugene, Oregon, actually not too far from Joelle, a few hours south. And I was not a believer, or I shouldn't say not a believer, but it wasn't really kind of my calling in the empathy world. But about 1.5 years ago, I witnessed an empathy circle, and it like completely changed my perspective of the power of what that holds. So that's what's brought me here, is to, I've since attended a few, and I want to learn to be a facilitator for it in the XR world, because I think it will be pretty foundational in the work that XR is doing. Check.
Thank you, Michelle. And Cecilia.
Hi, I'm really excited to see people from all over the world, and I live in Sweden, and I have been somewhat frustrated with a small climate group. We don't get I had to give up going to do the RO1 in another city. So I came across, well, this is actually what we really need where I live, and I'm really happy that I could join and to start off with these circles amongst the different organizations. Yeah, so I look forward to it.
Great, thank you, Cecilia. Apurva?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Apurva. I am based in Raleigh, North Carolina in the US. This is my first empathy circle, and I am excited to learn and just soak in all the information that I can. I'm, like most of you have said, I'm interested in learning and like cultivating my empathic listening skills. And I would like to connect to like my fellow humans on a deeper level instead of surface conversations. And that's what I'm hoping to take away. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Great, Apurva, thank you. And Graham.
Thank you, Anne. I'm Graham from Windsor, Ontario in Canada. And I first came across Edwin's empathy circles in November last year and have been a regular attendee since then. And I take a word from Larry. He talked about the missing link. And if you like, I've been spending the last 10 years finding this missing link. And I believe that I've kind of hit the jackpot, if you know what I mean. Anyway, my reason for being in XR is, while I have loads and loads of concerns about all sorts of things that people have mentioned, like Tiaho and our climate responsibilities and things, I'm more interested in the social side. And very specifically, I'm looking to help resolve, or not necessarily resolve, but help people to understand their different perspectives and be able to sort of cooperate and coordinate. And that's why I'm here. So I look forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. And Georgia?
Hi, I'm calling from Oxford in the UK, but I used to live in Japan, where I was involved with the small Extinction Rebellion group. Well, it's grown quite a lot, but obviously with the pandemic, everything's been online there. But anyway, yeah, so I came to this through Extinction Rebellion, and I've read a little bit about it, but I don't really know what this is, I guess, but I'm definitely interested in seeing ways that we can bring like people with disparate points of view together, especially given the way that I think, especially the internet is exacerbating like left-right divide. So that's why I'm here today.
Okay, thank you very much, Georgia. Okay, and Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin Rutch from the San Francisco Bay Area, part of the Extinction Rebellion Empathy Circle work group. This meeting I just mentioned is for everyone. You don't have to be part of Extinction Rebellion. The training that we do is universal for anyone. So just want to give that heads up. The Empathy Circle, I feel, is a really foundational practice that I've heard NVC, focusing, conflict mediation, and all these other practices. That the Empathy Circle, I want to spread this because it's sort of a first step practice that really helps you with all those other practices, community building, connection, healing. And so that's why I want to spread it. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you very much. And so we've heard from everybody now. I don't think I've missed anybody. Shout if I have. Okay, so this evening, Dean is going to, in a moment, go through the training. So this is an introduction session so that you can find out a little bit more and be part of an empathy circle. And we do like people to have done at least 2 empathy circles before they start doing the training to be a facilitator themselves, so that they have some experience. So Dean will be running through that facilitation training and the outline of the course. The course will actually start on the 17th of May. So we'll run one more introductory session next Monday evening. So any of you are welcome to come to that, and then go ahead and sign up if you'd like to participate in the actual training. So I'm going to pass over to Dean now. Dean, would you tell us a little bit more about the facilitation training?
Hello,
Thank
I'm just
you.
about to share my screen, so hopefully everything goes okay. There we go. Can we see the screen now? Introduction to Empathy Facilitation Circles. We have here a web page. It's called the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training. It's a cohort for everyone to join, that allows everyone to see the structure that we're going to be laying out before you. So an empathy circle is a structured dialogue, and the training is free. And we're doing this because we want to invest in a culture of empathy and spread this practice of empathic listening. And if you feel that you would like to donate some money, there is a link on the webpage to donate to. The prerequisites, like Anne has said, for taking part in the training are to have undergone at least 2 circles. So this is 1 circle, so you'd have to attend another circle. There are other circles later on in the week, or you can come to the one this time next week. Once you're committed to the program, it's 5 sessions of 1 session a week. They're 2.5 hours per session. And then between the sessions, we'd like you to connect up with someone on what we call a buddy call. This buddy call is a working practice whereby you do a one-on-one reflective listening process with each other, and you literally spend 15 minutes each reflecting upon what the other person has said to you. It's a way of deepening your listening muscles, because at first we try to listen to every single vowel and syllable rather than to understand the meaning without putting our own intentions, our own interpretations onto the meaning that someone else is giving to us. You can do an empathy circle as well, hopefully, with friends or family. With family, it's quite good because then you find actually, although at first people find it an alien process, in my family, it empowered my daughter to actually feel that her voice was heard. So her teenagehood suddenly, instead of being isolated, became connected back into the family again. So what we're trying to do by recording all these sessions is build up a massive database or a free online training service. It's an open source empathy training. Like I said, there is no cost to take part, but if you would like to donate, there is a link on the page. So we have a Facebook event. We have there is a link to the Facebook site on this page. Edwin, could you post the link to this page in the chat room, please?
If they just go to the home to this page, they can follow the links.
Okay, then, thank you. So what we're trying to do is create the whole series of cohorts, and these cohorts are designed for different parts around the world. So our cohort 13 is designed for primarily just for the Extinction Rebellion workers. As you can see here, some of these are open cohorts. Some of these are for specific people like the pandemic professors. Once we've committed to that time and date, we will be turning up at 6 p.m. British summer time. It's 2.5 hours per day. Excuse me. Has everyone actually seen, or I understand there's one lady this evening who hasn't actually ever been to an empathy circle. Is there anyone else who hasn't been to an empathy circle? Can't hear anyone. Can everyone hear?
And maybe if you, after you stop screen sharing, it'll be a bit easier for us to see.
Okay, let's stop screen sharing. There we go. Sorry about that. Would anyone like to run through the process of how we do an empathy cafe? Georgia, I understand you haven't been to any of the empathy circles before. Is this correct?
So I'm happy to go through the method, Dee, so that people have an explanation. So, my video's off. We basically have 3 roles during the empathy circle, and normally we'll have a circle of 3 to 5 participants. Ideal number is 4. And during that time, in addition to having a facilitator in the room, he's also an equal participant in the process. Each person has a turn at speaking and being listened to. And when it's your turn to be the speaker, you choose who you would like to have as your active listener. And their role is to listen to you and then to reflect back in short chunks what you've been talking about, and to convey what they as the listener has understood of what you've been saying, without changing it, without adding anything in, without making any judgments or agreeing or sympathizing. Is simply to reflect back in their own words by paraphrasing what they've heard. And then you'll have another turn at speaking and saying a little bit more about what you want to say, and the listener will reflect back to you again. And the object is that you are listened to and heard and understood to your satisfaction. So at the end of your time, which would often be 5 minutes, it might be 4, the facilitator will let you know. You have an opportunity to clarify if you feel that they've missed something really key, and finish what you're saying so that you have been heard. The person who's been listening to you becomes the active speaker, or becomes the speaker, and chooses who they'd like to have listen to them. And that person will then be their active listener and will go through the process again. And so it goes round the circle. If you're not the speaker or the active listener, you're what we call the silent listener. And your role as a silent listener is to pay attention fully, to notice what is happening, and maybe notice the difference between being an active listener and a silent listener, and to hold the space within the circle. And the facilitator will let you know how long you have, and will indicate to you on a piece of paper, or personally, I hold up my phone to let you know that the time is up at the end of your time. And at that point, you have a chance just to round up what you're saying, finish off. So at this point, you also, let me just say, when you're in the circles in a moment, you'll have a chance, if you're new to the process, of having it modeled to you by people who've already done it in the circle. So don't worry, you'll get a chance to learn and practice. Right, I finished introducing the method, I think. So in a moment, we'll split up and go into breakout rooms. Tiaho, you have a question.
Yes, I do. In another method of this kind of listening, what I'm wondering is, we've got the active listening, and this is called an empathy cafe. Is the empathy intrinsic in terms of, if I just hear someone talking about a content and they don't actually express any feelings around it, am I empathizing with that? Or is there space to, like, if someone starts to noticeably get tearful, for example, do I articulate it, or am I simply articulating only the words? Where does the empathy come in?
I think that you, in addition to the words, if you sense that the person is showing or feeling something in particular, you may refer to that. It would be difficult to make assumptions about what they're feeling, but you could say, I sense that you're feeling grief about this, or frustration, to indicate that that empathy, but not to absolutely tell them. You're not going to be telling them what they're feeling, because clearly it's up to them. They know what they're feeling. Or you could indicate, but not to kind of tell them. Does that clarify that part? But the idea is to be empathic and to notice, because sometimes we communicate not only with our words, but with our body language too. Bit more difficult on Zoom, but we still do.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I think, Edwin, would you be able to tell us what we're doing with breakout rooms?
Okay.
And is there anything you wanted to add before we went to the topic? I haven't said the topic. So the topic for this evening is why we would like to have empathy in Extinction Rebellion. Why do we see that having the empathy circle process in Extinction Rebellion would be valuable? But as is normal in an empathy circle, it's also fine for you to talk about whatever is alive for you at the moment. Whatever, if you have anything on top or that's preoccupying you, it's fine for you to speak about that. Sorry, Edwin, back to you. Would you like to tell us about which rooms we'll go into, and add anything else in I might have missed?
Yeah, excellent. So we have 3 rooms. Anne will facilitate 1, Dean will facilitate 2, and then Graham, can you facilitate 3, number 3?
Yes, that'd be my pleasure.
Okay, and there'll be 5 people in each room. So, and we have an hour and 15 minutes. So you can sort of decide if it's 5-minute or 4-minute turns. So I think we're ready to go. So we have an hour and 15 minutes, and then we'll come back into the full group. The topic is, why do you personally feel it's important to spread the empathy circle in Extinction Rebellion? You can talk about anything that you would like, but there's sort of an intention here. We're building a set of arguments and a paper on that topic. So this is kind of helping us to gather those insights. And at the end, if you have a few ideas and share those out at the end, we'll have a little recording for those. We can also make a video to kind of make the case for others. So that's sort of but then again, talk about anything that's up for you, if you're free to do that. So here we go. The rooms are opening, and we'll see you there. And I'm with you, Anne, here in the waiting room.
Okay. So good. Welcome, everybody. So we're all, Michelle, you've been, and you were here last week, weren't you? So you know how to do that. So let's just start. Would anybody like to be the first person? Michelle, feel free to choose any one of us. We're all, we've all done this before, so choose anyone you like to have listen to you.
Okay.
And we'll do, I think we'll do 4-minute turns to start with.
Okay, great. I will, I guess I'm curious if Ron would be interested in being my active listener.
I would be happy to. Thank you.
And just to let you know, when your time's up, I'll hold up my phone. And if you could just catch my eye or nod to let me know that you've seen, and then I'll put it down. Otherwise, I'll just hold it there until I know you've known. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Anne. So the topic is how empathy circles can benefit XR. Is that, did I capture that? Okay. I have been with XR for, I guess, 2 years now, plus or minus. And, you know, like with all cultures, communities, families, there's tensions that arise. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, empathy for me was like, oh, empathy, you know, it's good to have, and, you know, but I didn't really grasp sort of how important and the power, I guess, of empathetic listening and understanding until I saw a circle about 1.5 years ago. Do you want me to pause there, Ron?
That would be really great. Thank you. Yeah, what I heard you say is that you've been involved in XR for a couple of years and didn't really have any connection to empathy circles. But then, as with every group or culture, every organisation, tensions arise, and I don't think you talked about resolution of that tension, but then you witnessed an empathy circle, and up till then you hadn't really grasped the power of empathic listening. And then you saw the circle and you're a believer, you're a convert.
Yes, thank you, Ron. You captured that very well. So I saw the benefit of this process, and a number of things are appealing about it, because, you know, it's not just the empathy listening, but it's the structure that is a part of the circles, the empathy circles, that really provides for everyone to speak their piece and feel heard without judgment. And I think that feeling heard without judgment is a key piece in sort of, whew, okay, you know, and the tensions kind of you know, they may not completely abate, but there's that space for allowing conversation to open up around it.
Thanks, Michelle. What I heard you say is that you saw the benefit of the process, that the fact that there is a structure that appeals to you, which provide an opportunity for everybody to speak their piece and feel heard without judgment. And that even though it will not always completely resolve the tensions, it will allow people to find their peace and to connect.
Yeah. All right, Anne, I've captured that. Thank you. So with that, I think you captured everything brilliantly, Ron. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for the pace and the space that you allowed. Do appreciate it.
So Ron, it's over to you to choose a listener.
Goodness, I thought my job was done. I would like Linda to listen to me if she would.
Yes, Ron, ready to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. So I'll just refresh myself. Why would I like to see empathy circles throughout XR? Well, my experience in XR has involved and some rather bitter conflicts, and those have not really been resolved. At times we have involved an outside counsellor in an attempt to find resolution, and that has been valuable, but I think that empathy circles provide a more on-the-spot opportunity for conflict resilience.
Okay, Ron, if I can reflect back to what I think you said, is that during your involvement with XR so far, you've been involved in a number of situations where there has been conflict. And although you've brought in an independent person to help to resolve those conflicts, you feel that empathy circles will offer something perhaps in the future?
Yeah, I think that conflict can fester, and it can create divides that, and especially with XR, it's a taxing and quite stressful movement to be involved with. I feel the eco-anxiety that others talk about, but I also feel the, if you like, the eco-impotence, and I think that that can turn into to anger, and that can create an issue.
So you perceive by the, it sounds as though by the nature of XR dealing with what is an emergency, that there's a lot of tension and sort of anger arises out of that because of people's needs to act on the emergency that XR is focused on.
Yeah, and you know, I think that I don't think I yet appreciate the power of empathic listening, and even though I have been involved for several years with NVC, I'm relatively new to empathy circles.
Okay, so you've got a background, Ron, in MVC, but you're just beginning to explore empathy circles and the value of them and what they can perhaps offer.
Yes, I'm often so absorbed in the process and so anxious about my listening that I come away thinking, oh, did I do it right?
So the process, being focused on the process, gives you a sense of anxiety and wondering if you're getting it right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah. So I think that exploring it more, taking part in more circles, is going to be a benefit for me, and then be a benefit for XR in this country, and then be a benefit to the global community.
So you're feeling that getting involved in the practice is going to be beneficial in a sort of ripple effect through where you are and other parts of the movement across the world.
Yes, yes, that's so. And thank you, and I feel heard. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Would you like to choose the listener, Linda?
Yeah. I'm just thinking. I'd like to choose you, Anne, if I may.
Lovely. Love to.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a lot of. I have thought about this quite a lot already. And I believe my greatest belief is that what this structured process offers is of empathic listening is a real opportunity for people to speak their truth, as Michelle said, speak their truth, people's truth. People can, I can't speak tonight. People can speak their truth without the fear of judgment, which doesn't really happen very often in normal conversations, which are quite combative. I think this, well, I think this, well, I think this, and they just build into a kind of process of almost trumping what your thought is with somebody else's, whereas this process offers some really deep feeling from myself, certainly, when I'm heard, that I've actually really been valued, and my thoughts and feelings have been valued. So that's kind of the first element that I think is really important.
Okay, can I reflect that back, please, Linda? That bit. Right, you've been thinking about this topic quite a lot recently, and the main thing that you believe is that the structure offers the opportunity for us or participants to really speak their truth and be heard without judgment, without being afraid of being judged, rather than what there's normally this kind of competitive or combative, I think, sense of conversation that people are trying to come up with their opinion and trumping one another's opinion rather than deeply listening. So that sense of being deeply heard is what you think is most powerful.
Yeah. And the importance of that to Extinction Rebellion as a movement is that unless we can, with each other as human beings, change or kind of alter or enhance the way that we communicate with each other and have empathy with one another, we don't really have a chance of achieving the empathy that we require in order to live the way that we need to in an empathic way with the earth, essentially. So one thing can't develop without the other. We can't change the way our exploitative nature as human beings unless we change our relations with each other kind of first, or at least simultaneously, at the very least simultaneously. That's my feeling.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is this, the importance to Extinction Rebellion is that in order for us to, as a movement, in order for us to be able to connect empathically and to be able to do that one with another, it's the only way that we're going to be able to change the way we live on the planet, basically, to live more harmoniously with the earth, in a way that it is, you didn't say sustainable, but is possible for our future existence.
Thanks, Sam.
Have I got that?
Yeah, you've captured it. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Edwin, would you be happy to listen to me, please?
Listening.
Yeah, I love what Linda said. It's it feels it, yeah, to me, I think it's got to the point, it feels it's the only way that there's any hope. And it seems absolutely essential for what we're trying to achieve in the world, to achieve the change that is needed. And without it being done empathically, it's going to be violent and nasty, and to expect anybody to change and create the change that is required. And let's face it, huge change is required. We need to connect and do it in a way, in harmony. Harmony is not the right word, but just empathically. We've got to connect. There's no way we can't expect anybody to change if we can't change that and be connected.
So I'm hearing that you're really resonating with what Linda was saying, that to have a real change, it has to be an empathic change. If it's like with competition and all this, that's not really going to work. It has to be empathic, where people are really connecting with each other and hearing each other.
Well, I think it's kind of more, it's not about empathic change. It's about, in order for people to be able to change, they need support, they need connection, they need to step out of, we all need to step out of our distressed ways of doing things, our chronic ways of doing things, which we're all part of this toxic system. And in order to do it differently, to live differently, we need to relate differently and unite, connect.
Yeah, so to really get out of this toxic system, we need a different way of relating, and the empathy is a different way of relating for, and it connecting.
And it supports change. It supports people to actually grow into, in themselves, to grow in themselves and to grow in their connections with one another. And then by growing in yourself, you can change. And by growing in a interconnected way, we can change in a group way, in a societal way.
So it's
and then the power of that, in order to support or create real change in the world, we need to reach out then to society.
So
in
it's
a
really
collective way.
So it's really about change, is supporting change. When we have this empathy, people can change to make the changes that are needed. So it's really about supporting that change.
Yeah, and I think otherwise we individually get stuck in our comfort zones, and keep on doing what we've been doing, and that and that is not living lightly on the planet or with each other or lots of things. That's my time.
Yeah, so it's hard to make that change. People get kind of stuck in how they are, and to have change happen, we need empathy to create a space for people to make that change to live better on the planet.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin.
Okay.
I feel heard.
Great. Speak to Michelle.
Yes, Edwin, I'd be happy to be your active listener.
Yeah, thanks. So what's sort of alive for me is, you know, having gone to XR meetings here in San Francisco Bay Area, and it's just feeling so tense, and like you can't really speak into it without like, oh, I'm going to get shot down, or I'm going to get beat up emotionally or something like that. So that's just something I had sort of noticed.
So I'm hearing, Edwin, that your experience early on with, and maybe I might be inserting that, with XR meetings is the sense that there was some tensions, maybe leading to discomfort with being honest, expressing honestly.
And yeah, exactly. And there wasn't a space to speak and connect with people. It was like just there's just this thick kind of rigidity and tension and feeling in the meetings.
So you felt more of an atmosphere of rigidity than an openness to speak.
Yeah, and I know that you had left the original XR USA to start XR America, and I think part of it was the same dynamic, that there wasn't a place to really be heard and to sort of negotiate and kind of have a constructive dialogue, and everybody feel included. So it's like, hey, I'm just going to break off and start another group, where it has a different sort of dynamic. So I think it sort of relates to kind of your experience too.
So I'm hearing you relating to my experience of concern with how things were going, in that the space wasn't offered to openly and candidly, but respectfully have those conversations. And that is kind of, you know, in that relationship that emphasizes for you the importance of this work.
And yeah, for me, if it would have started with empathy cast circles, like everybody gets heard, you kind of mix it up, get heard some more. So you really bring in empathy from the get-go. I think it would save so much time, would be so much more effective over the long term. Because in the long term, all these divisions are just so time consuming and disruptive and destructive.
I am hearing that had empathy circles been something that was brought into our XR work early on, that would have helped to keep the divisions that we're witnessing at bay, or at least, you know, not in a, you know, not so much so that it's destructive to the work we're doing.
Yeah, I think it was Gloria Steinem, you know, there's a quote from her saying, the means are the end. The ends are the means that you use. So if it's all this stress and tension as the means and sort of domination, I mean, that's the ends you're going to get. So I think the means are so important that it has to be empathic means for empathic ends. Because there's no way around it. It's like domination, toxic means are going to end with that same energy.
Okay, yeah, that is so what I'm hearing is you appreciate the quote or saying from Gloria Steinem about the ends or the means. And so if we use empathetic means to achieve an ends, then our ends will be that way, versus the domineering, toxic kind of ways that will just lead to the same end of
Feel
what we
fully
practice.
heard. Yes, thank you. to express my frustrations.
You feel you're heard with the expression of your frustrations. Wonderful. All right, so I guess that's me. Could I have Linda, would you be comfortable being my active listener?
Yes, certainly, Michelle, please.
Great, thank you. I'm a note taker because my brain is very sieve-like. And I really relate to what Ron was saying about the active listener position being a little bit anxiety ridden, at least at first, until, you know, like, I can't remember, someone said earlier on about getting the, you know, it's like when we practice our muscles and we build our muscles, we also practice the brain and get that going. So I'm in that, you know, working on thing as well. So I share that. Yes, and I loved how, Ron, I believe it was you that said that conflicts can fester. And that is essentially echoing what I'm hearing from Edwin and others actually very much. I'll park there for you, Linda.
Thank you. Yeah, so you first of all said that you like to take notes to keep on track with things. And you're recognising what Ron said about activism and the anxiety and the stress being a feature, and also what he said about conflicts can sometimes fester.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you captured that. Thank you. There is much anger that arises from learning about the climate and ecological emergency we're facing. And that is really a part of the grief process, right? Anger is one of those things. And I think that empathy circles fill a role very powerfully. I also believe that it is a tool in the regenerative toolbox. For example, do you want me to stop there, Linda?
Yeah, if you were, yeah, just pause a moment. So you're recognizing that that anger is an emotion that arises out of people's recognition of the climate and ecological emergency, and it's a kind of natural part of the grief process. It's a stage of the grief process. You're recognizing that, and the empathy circles have a role in the toolbox, the toolkit for XR.
Yes, thank you. Captured. And to add to that, I think that, like, for example, we have a regenerative team that I'm heading up the empathy circle part, but we have another gal who's heading up the grief processing part, and then another gal who's taking up visioning, you know, a visioning process. And so we're just kind of putting this together where we can offer all of these on alternating Saturdays to our teams. So that's something we're developing to try and make it, you know, empathy circles are fabulous and a piece of it that I believe in, but I also believe that it is a part of a whole. And I got that, Anne, thank you.
Okay, so you're saying that you're part of a regenerative team who are working on various aspects of regenerative culture, and you have somebody who's working on the grief process and somebody who's working on visioning part of the culture, and yeah, but your thing is that you're excuse me, that you're focusing on is empathy circles, and you believe they have a place going forward within this regen culture that you're trying to formulate, kind of get things together. Sounds exciting.
Thank you, Linda. I feel fully heard.
Ron, I wonder if you would hear me. Is that okay?
Did you talk to me, Linda? I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is it my chat?
I would be happy to listen to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, I resonated with some of the things that you said before about the stress and anxiety and the tensions that arise, and you know, other people said it as well, but when you spoke about it, it really resonated with me about how tensions arise, and they can be left, and it can get difficult then if they are left and not addressed within XR, and it seems to be around the urgency that we all feel that things need to change, and that kind of frustration and a bit of, yeah. I'll leave it there for a minute.
Thank you. What I heard was that you resonated with what I had said and others had said around the stress and anxiety of the issues and the emergency that we're dealing with, and that tensions arise, and if they're left, they become difficult. And you know, I think you also talked about the urgency for change and the frustration with that, with the obstacles to that change.
Yeah, and also, I think the empathy, there's a sort of empathy culture, you know, spreading the idea that actually really hearing where other people are coming from, and actually practicing that in life is kind of time consuming. And I think that's where it kind of gets left, and I think we do need to slow down. We need to slow down a bit, and we all need to just kind of slow down. That's my kind of feeling. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, you talked about empathy culture and spreading that idea, caring about where other people come from, hearing them, and extending that practice into life, and however that can be time consuming, but and then you really stress the fact that people and yourself need to slow down, really slow down.
I've had, I'm coming from a place where I've just had some kind of extreme experience of being involved in an action where we've managed to get the dialogue conversation outside of the bubble, and outside of the echo chamber of talking amongst ourselves about how urgent and difficult things are. And I've been very conscious of the fact that I wanted to respond to a lot of people who were not very happy about, yeah, thanks, Sam, about the action that took place. But at the same time, I've had to stop myself, because the conversation has to be the right thing at this time, because those people who responded negatively need empathy. They need to be understood and they need to be heard. And so it's going to take a bit of time responding to hundreds of comments on social media. And I think that's a constraint, really. I don't know what the answer is to that. I'll stop there.
Thank you. So you talked about coming from an extreme experience where and being involved in an action, and where the dialogue spread outside of your bubble, and you talked about a bubble of 40 odd or something, that you felt a sense of urgency about wanting to respond to those concerns of the people who were not happy about the action. And then you expressed the sentiment that people who responded negatively, need to be heard, and that there are constraints to that process.
Because we don't have much time. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, I feel heard.
We don't have much time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I would like to talk with you, to have you listen to me, Anne, if you would.
Yes, Ron, love to listen to you.
Yes, okay. Well, one of the things that concerns me is that you know, it's difficult enough when there is division within XR, but a lot of what XR, the XR that I'm involved in, is at odds with mainstream society, that the people that we are trying to influence don't seem to care, don't seem to share the sense of urgency, or don't even see the picture that's unfolding in front of them.
So one of the concerns that you've got is that although there's kind of this division within XR, that basically we are trying to influence the mainstream, and so XR is at odds with the mainstream, and we're trying to influence them. So that's one of the reasons why you see this as being important.
Yeah, but you know, we're involved in civil disobedience, and it annoys people, and all they see is the protest. They don't see the point. And so I think that you know, I was really switched on to Edwin talking about empathy circles between left-wing and right-wing political factions and creating a connection. And without connection, we're just all flying apart, like, yeah.
So we're engaged in civil disobedience, and this annoys people, the public, and they don't necessarily see any reason for it other than that they're being annoyed and that there's someone protesting, and so they don't see the point. And in order to find some way of the point of seeing the point, or helping others to see it is the empathy process. And you were attracted partly by the work between people of opposite opinions, the left and the right, and the coming together, the creating a connection between people with diverse views, and the use of this in XR.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Yeah, because I mean, for instance, the political party that I'm involved with is now looking at trying to find ways to establish dialogue groups with farmers, and that's the Green Party. See farmers, New Zealand as a farming community. We have a really high rate of environmental pollution from those farming activities. So it's become polarized. There's two camps. There's the green and there's the farming community, and thus in some ways each see each other as the enemy. And I don't think that is a way for change to occur. So I'm looking for ways that can get past that conflict and get towards how can we address this issue and recognize it and find acceptable ways to move on.
So what you're talking about being very interested in is that you're in a party, a political party, the Green Party, in your country, and they are trying to work with farmers to get farmers to change their practices, because at the moment they're highly polluting. And these two groups then have become almost oppositional because of this difference, big difference. And you see the value of, you're trying to use the empathy work, or you wish to, as a way to get past that conflict between people with divergent opinions.
Thank you, Anne. I feel fully heard.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so Edwin, do you listen to me again?
Me again? Sure.
Well, you can have a change if you like.
No, I'm good. Whatever you want.
Okay. It's quite interesting the way we're all kind of a bit focused on the conflicts and the tensions, and it's definitely good to hear other people's experience, or that other people are engaged with that issue too.
So you appreciate hearing the issues of conflicts, just to know that others are dealing with it as well. You're not alone.
Yeah, and to see other people are thinking of how we can use empathy circles to help with that. I think I've noticed that in myself, when I've had kind of conflicts or disagreements with people in Extinction Rebellion, not big conflicts, but anything really, where if it doesn't get really resolved, it lingers. And I can call to mind a few things and they weren't ever sorted out.
So you're seeing how unless the conflicts are really deeply sorted out, they just kind of linger and they just don't get resolved.
And so I see that there's a residue, there's a kind of disproportional effect on people. I see it on myself, but I think too that I suspect I'm not the only one who is affected by conflicts between others, that I'm sensitive to it, and that if there's a conflict with anybody, it affects, anybody in a group that I'm involved in, then it leaves a residue effect with me. And it's not okay for it just to be left.
Mm-hmm. So if there's any conflict in the group, it leaves sort of a residue of the conflict, and you get affected by it as well, and the whole group gets affected, and it's not okay.
And I suspect that if that's true for me, it's true for others too.
Yeah, and if you're feeling that residue and that energy, other people are feeling it as well. Yeah.
Maybe.
maybe you're just sort of speculating. Maybe that's not true. Maybe it is, but you think it is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Did I set the time? And then the other thing that was coming up in my mind is that I think that, well, I don't know about others, maybe all of the rest of you, but probably not, and meeting in person. A lot of my work in Extinction Rebellion now for over a year has been on Zoom. In fact, for me, exclusively on Zoom. And well, so I think that adds to this kind of residue effect, because if you're meeting in person or in a group with other people, and even if there has been some like a disagreement or tension, but you share a cup of tea or you do something else together just lightly around each other, then it can dissipate. But with Zoom, there's no natural kind of way for things to dissipate.
Yeah, so the conflict that you see between yourself and others, between others, it creates this quality of this residue of the conflict. And you see that being on Zoom, it doesn't really get resolved. Whereas if you're meeting in person, you might have a cup of tea or get together, and somehow that sort of heals or clears up that residue. And
yeah, because you see different parts of different people when you're meeting in person, and we're doing different things. So yeah.
So you're seeing, because when you're in person, it's like you see more of the person that kind of helps influence you and helps clear up that residue of those conflicts.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. I feel heard.
Okay, I'll speak to Linda then.
Yes, I'm happy to hear you.
Great. Yeah, I was thinking something about what Michelle was saying, that there's the empathy is sort of a part of one factor. And what for me, the empathy is sort of like a fish swims in water, right? It's not everything. Water's not everything. There's other fish, there's itself, but the water is kind of like pervasive. And for me, that's what empathy is like. It's sort of this pervasive energy, between things.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say that you think empathy is like the water, or is it like fish?
For a fish, it's like the water. It's
for
like
the fish.
for the fish.
So for a fish, empathy is like the water. So it's like where everything else fits in. And the empathy.
Yeah, it's the space, it's the energy you move through. And the same thing with we're moving through air, right? It's sort of the space that we move through. We could move, instead of moving through air, we could metaphorically go through toxicity, which is the air is like full of pollution, dirt, you can barely breathe. And that would be sort of maybe that metaphorically that toxic system that Anne is talking about.
Okay, so relating to what Anne, first of all, you were relating to what Michelle said, and then you were relating to what Anne said about the, we could move through toxicity, or we can move through clear empathic
air. Exactly. We need clear empathic air. I like that metaphor. So even if there's a grief circle, the grief is kind of moving through this space of empathy, right? It's moving through this empathic air. If it's visioning, you're visioning within this vision of this empathic space. So the empathy is pretty important, it seems to me. So yeah, clean empathic air.
So to you, the empathy is the kind of the essence. It should be the essence in which everything, all other kind of activity or circles should operate. Contain.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why it's so important. That's why I see it as so important. And the other thing I hear, like, oh, it's very time consuming. You know, it is, because we're, you know, creating clean air is time consuming. It's like, especially cleaning up the air, right? If you have filthy air, cleaning it up is very time consuming, but just creating more filthy air is not going to work in the long run. You know, even if you're all taking action, you know, it's like, I don't know. I'm playing with metaphors here.
So yeah, so you're, you know, you're recognizing that it's also been said that that it's very time consuming. It is time consuming, but what's the point in just creating more dirty air, because then you've got to clean that up as well.
Yeah. So, you know, in the long term, if you just put in the time up front, you know, it'll be short. It won't take as much time in the long term. But these conflicts that go on and on and on, it's kind of like, why are we having all these unresolved conflicts and using all these approaches? Because they don't work in the long run. And it's like somehow this idea that if we just put more energy into it, we take more action, somehow that's going to solve the problem. It's just like doubling down on the problem. It's like,
yeah. So yeah. So you feel as though you know, sort of taking action and sort of, you know, challenging, almost pushing back, maybe is not the way to go. Empathy is the way to go, because actually you just cause more problems by kind of meeting things head on rather than empathic.
yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks.
So can I just interject a moment? Linda, it's your turn now, but would you like a stretch break of a minute or so, just a quick bio break from the screen? Okay, just say 2 minutes.
Okay. sorry about my cat. He thinks he's a superstar, and every time I'm on Zoom, he's got to come and be there. So I apologize for that disruption.
No need. I didn't see a disruption. So, Linda, it's your turn. Ron, are you there?
I am. I'm just making another cup of tea, trying to wake up.
So, Linda, who would you like to have listen to you?
Yeah, Michelle, will you and your cat, who I haven't seen either, hear me? Michelle, thank you. Gosh. Yeah, I think I really do. I resonate with what Edwin was just saying. Well, with what everybody said, and with what Edwin was just saying about action and it being very sort of oppositional. I think that taking action needs to happen in order to, within XR, needs to happen. The actions that people do needs to happen to wake people up, but then we need some idea of how we're going to enter into a conversation with those people. And if we can do it with empathy, that is fantastic. I mean, I'm kind of come from a background of mediation and sort of de-escalation skills and things like that. And empathy slots right in there. And unless we meet other people where they are, we're never going to achieve, in XR, we're never going to achieve what we need to do, which is full scale kind of change system. Well, full scale system change, isn't it? We're never going to be able to do that. I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's great. I observed, paused as you were kind of gathering your thoughts to share, Linda. And you feel a relationship or a resonation with what Edwin was saying in the perspective of actions kind of being oppositional, and you know, believing that actions are an integral role to wake people up, and that there's the missing piece that empathy fills into that, of holding conversations when people do come in. You also expressed a background in mediation and de-escalation, and shared that you think empathy fills in that well, as you know, that's kind of a part of that. And you also mentioned the need to receive people where they're at. So that's what I picked up. Don't know if that was accurate.
Yeah, and it kind of, so I suppose it circles back around to what I said in the first instance, which was that feeling of not really on a personal level believing that we can change our toxic relationship with the natural world, of which we are a part, but are currently apart from. We're not gonna reach a place where we're not in a toxic relationship with the natural world unless we can resolve our toxic kind of communication styles and everything with each other. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I'm heard that it kind of comes back around to sort of a feeling for you of not believing that the changes can happen within the current way that we relate to each other, the toxic ways that, you know, our cultures, our societies have brought on us, unless we can change that, kind of release the toxicity and bring in the empathy. Then you think that that is what will help bring some faith into what we're doing, the success of what we're doing. Please correct me if I have heard you.
It's just very briefly, it's just more about, if we can't be in empathic relationships with one another as the same kind of species that apparently is worth saving, because that's what we're that's what we're about. If we can't get into an empathic culture with one another, how can we do it with the natural world? How can we possibly think that they're going to be able to achieve that?
Okay. So I'm hearing that it's more about that if we can't get a culture of empathy, how can we develop a culture with the planet, an empathetic way of living with the planet?
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Oh, I guess it's my turn. Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Ron, where are we at in the circle here?
Yeah, that would be perfect. If you choose Ron, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, great. Ron, would you be?
I'm happy to be great.
Okay, super. I am in agreement with a couple of the comments I've heard around, particularly, I guess, with what Edmund was saying about, empathy being the water with which we swim in, regardless of what tools we use to relate to each other. And so yeah, so there's that. And I agree. And I think that, like what he was saying with the grief work and the visioning work, there's definitely elements of empathy that will make that work successful.
Okay, so what I heard you say was that you were in agreement with comments that particularly that others made, but particularly Edwin's comment around empathy being the water we swim in, regardless of what tools we use to relate, and that that both grief and visioning contains or will always contain elements of empathy.
Yeah, and I think to kind of embellish on that a little bit, their success will be affected by the level of empathy that is brought into those platforms.
So the success will be affected by the level of empathy that is brought into those platforms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then another thing I wanted to, oh, I forgot to set my timer. Another thing that I wanted to just kind of comment on is, as a silent listener, I gain a lot from listening to the active listener. It's not, you know, yeah.
So as a silent listener, you gain a lot from listening to the active listener.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I didn't quite catch what the, you know, the speaker was saying, or it was worded in a way that I understand a bit better. And it just kind of, when you hear things more than once, it really solidifies things. So it's just makes the listening that much more powerful, I guess.
So when you hear things, twice, it can solidify, and you can just catch the message better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess coming back to the festering thing, I think that is a real thing and a loophole that, bless you, that is needing to be filled. I think a number of us have kind of commented on that in one aspect or another. So it definitely feels like a real true thing. And the importance of empathy in making the work that we do successful. Because if we break down, I see that Anne saying thank you. And let those tensions fester, then we break down, and then we are not as effective, and likely not effective enough to generate the masses that we need.
Okay. So
we have 4 minutes. Just had it stop.
And a loophole that needs to be filled, to be closed, and that you know, that festering can affect the work that we are trying to do, and there is such a great need for what we are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I feel fully heard.
Okay, Ron, it's your turn. I think I'll time you 3 minutes if you'd like to choose an active listener.
Okay, I'm going to, I know that both you and Edwin have done a lot of this, so I'm going back to, I'm going to go straight back to Michelle, so that us newbies get practice. Okay, is that all right with you, Michelle? Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that's happened since we've been on this call is I've had an email from a friend of mine in this city in which I live, asking me to be a support person at a meeting to confront a man who touched her inappropriately on a group outing. So, I am thinking about how effective empathy circles would be in this occasion.
So I'm hearing that you, during the course of this empathy circle, received outreach from a friend who is very concerned about inappropriate behavior by a fellow rebel, someone else, a gentleman, and is seeking your help to support her.
She actually wants me to be her support person at a face-to-face meeting this Saturday. And I'm really, I suppose, looking for guidance and advice as to how effective empathy circles, or an empathy circle would be in this case.
So you're curious to know how an empathy circle might benefit this situation. And yeah, you'd like to explore that.
I would, and it's yeah, this is to expand it further. My friend is my ex-wife, who we separated in 1980, a long time ago. So this is what's alive for me stuff. But since she lives in Wanganui, where I live, and we've become friends again, and that is really good. But I also worry about that it's going to be maybe put a tax on the friendship.
Okay. So I'm hearing that you wanted to add context to the situation, and that is that the woman is your ex-wife, whom you have developed, you know, a friendship over the years. And your concern about that is that it would add some bias and complication to the situation.
Yeah, just to clarify, as you know, like we separated over 40 years ago, and I had very little to do with her, with each other. We had very little to do with each other for many years, but I've only been living in this city for since January, and so the friendship has really been renewed since then. So thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure. And I just wanted to say that I heard that it's a recent renewal of friendship with her.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Michelle. As you see, we're back in the main room. Ran out of time. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll have just a short time each, say about 30 seconds, to share why we personally think it's important, you know, any insights that we've had about why it's important to spread empathy circles through Extinction Rebellion. So we'll go round and I'll call on people to help speed up the process. First person, yeah, Edwin's put it into the chat. Why do you personally feel it's important to spread the empathy circle practice throughout Extinction Rebellion? Okay, so do I have a volunteer for the first person? Anyone ready to be put on the spot? Larry, you've got 30 seconds.
I think in empathy circles is a very powerful communication tool, and Extinction Rebellion has a powerful message to bring forth, and it would behoove them to use the power of empathy circles to help bring that message. It's so important. Please bring that message forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And I'm going to call on somebody to go next. Joelle, would you be happy to go next with Linda afterwards?
Sure. You know, my experience of being involved with different groups and communities involved in some sort of social or climate change, I have often witnessed or been a part of conflict and hurt that has been very destructive and ended up really interfering with the productivity of the group's goal. And I find that the empathic listening circle is very generative. That word just keeps on coming up for me.
Thank you, Joelle. Linda, and after Linda, Apurva, would you like to go?
Yeah, I think essentially the importance of spreading a culture of empathy in XR is that it gives space to be able to resolve conflict, and it's a model for a different way of being with each other, which we need to achieve if we're going to be a different way with the earth, essentially.
Thank you, Linda. And after Apurva, Ron, would you go, please?
I feel like it's personally important to build a culture of empathy in the world, not just in like organization to organization. And hopefully through that, we can all collectively deepen our communication skills and be better listeners, which I believe is something that we deeply miss in this world right now, that people don't feel heard. And I would hopefully like to do my part in changing that.
Thank you, Apurva. And after Ron, Shai, would you be happy to go?
I think that developing a culture of empathy circles within XR is really important, but my personal belief is that to develop a culture of empathy circles outside of XR, throughout our communities, throughout our towns, our cities, so that we can work together rather than opposition. That's my real interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Shai, and after Shai, Cecilia.
Yeah. I see that what the people who are destructive, the governments and industry are using divide and conquer, and try more and more to silence us and divide us. So I think that getting together and find ways to speak more and to be heard is the basic thing to fight against this direction.
Thank you. Cecilia, and after Cecilia, Yigal.
I feel it's so important with empathy and to, in order for XR to really be deeply rooted in the love and the values of XR at its core, in order to maintain a healthy culture within and without XR, to be able to communicate and make safe spaces both within and communicate with people without outside of XR.
Thank you very much. Oh, carry on. Did I cut across you? I'm sorry. Did you want to just finish?
No, I just, there's such a big stress, and we're working hard, and it's an emotional stress, and it works on the brain, that we tend to get burnout, and the empathy is out of the window easily, and we need to press the need to create in every meeting the world we want to live in. Right.
Thank you, Cecilia. Yigal, would you be happy to go next? And after Yigal, Georgia.
Yeah, I will be very short. I see only two solutions, not two solutions, two ways. Violence or dialogue. There is no third way. Or we choose violence or we choose dialogue. And the main humanity is doing that for thousands of years. And we can only choose our camp. You want to be in the camp of violence or the camp of of dialogue, empathic dialogue, compassion, and change things doesn't change from up. It's only from down, from the people. It's a big human problem. It's not new. It's very frustrating. But we are obliged. It's a moral obligation to be optimistic.
Thank you, Igal. Georgia, and after Georgia, Dean.
Yeah, I agree with Yigal about the point he raised about there's only two options, dialogue or conflict, and obviously I want to pursue the path of dialogue. So I think empathetic listening is really important within Extinction Rebellion, because not only for kind of organizational reasons and for those kinds of regenerative purposes within the organization, but also then to communicate with people outside the movement and achieve our goals. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Georgia. And after Dean, Michelle, did you already go? After Dean, Michelle.
I think the practice of actually learning to listen instead of listening to compete is a novel practice. It's something we should all try and instill in others. And we can only do that by modeling it. So by learning this practice of reflective listening, we actually model to others how they should hear by actually showing them that we've actually truly heard them, and that they will feel heard. And that releases their love chemical, oxytocin, which is actually really good. Makes everyone feel really happy. And yes, thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Dean. So Michelle and then Tiaho.
You know, I feel like everybody really encompassed a lot of what I believe about empathy circles and XR. Essentially, you know, toxic cultures, they breed toxicity, distrust, opposition, division. Empathetic cultures and ways of being breed empathy, kindness, understanding, diffuses tensions. We need to be the force that breaks the cycle of the toxic culture we're in. And that's where I think our work fits in this. So check.
Thank you, Michelle. Tiaho, and then Edwin.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. I'm mindful that in Māori culture, there are kind of two big forms for speaking. One is on the Maraiatia, and it's a place where the dust, like there can be conflict and so forth. The talk can go backwards and forwards. Essentially these days, not much happens. But the other big space for dialogue is, when I say the dust, that's the dust of the war god. And the other big space for talking and listening is inside the house, and that's the house of peace. And that entity is rongo, which also means to sense and to listen with every aspect of ourselves, not except our eyes. And I think this is what we're really reclaiming. We're reclaiming our ability to listen deeply, and because I'm so sick of the fighting and the violence that Yigal talked about. And my only interest in XR now is really regenerative cultures. I had lots of ideas about actions, about the narrative and everything, but I'm very committed to the practice of empathic communication. Thank you for providing the space, Edwin, and everyone who's arrived.
Thank you, Tiaho. Edwin.
Yeah, what came up in our group for me was the means are the end. So the means that we use are the ends that we get. So if we're using competition, violence, domination, hierarchy as a means, or put downs, or whatever, those are the ends we're going to get. So, if we use empathic means of listening, dialogue, being present, hearing people deeply, negotiating, that's the culture we're going to get. So it's again, that the means are the end. Yeah.
And I think I've had everybody speak other than myself. Have I missed anybody? No. Okay. So for me, I think I had it just now. I think yeah, I think that our toxic system has divided us all very, very successfully from ourselves and from each other. And the antidote to that is to connect. And this is the best way, I think. And it's the only way for us to connect, is to listen, and listen empathically. So that's me. Edwin, please, would you go over the way to sign up for the training? We're starting our first training session of 5 next on the 17th, in a fortnight today. So this time in 2 weeks' time. So Edwin will tell us more.
Yeah, so I put in the link to a feedback form for this session. You can put your name and contact info, any sort of feedback on this specific Empathy Cafe. Then the second link is to the sign up to cohort 13A, which, as Anne was saying, starts in 2 weeks or a fortnight, is that you like to say there in the UK. And I'm just seeing who is attending here. I just wanted to sort of check. There was, I think there was 4 people who I'm not sure if they're wanting to take part. I think everyone else had signed up. So Ron, did you want to take the training here, or find a time that was more convenient for you?
I was looking at signing on to cohort 11B.
Okay.
Which has a more user-friendly time for me.
Right, that's like 3 p.m. or something.
Yeah,
for New Zealand time, so a bit more convenient. And then Shai, I think you were interested in this cohort too. We just wanted to see.
Yes, I want to register. Yes.
Okay, great. Then we'll have that. And Celia in Sweden, just checking where you were.
This is a good time for me.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. And Georgia? This is about the training that starts in 2 weeks, 5-session training, if you were interested in that.
Yeah, I think so. Today was only my first session, but
Okay.
I found it useful. So maybe I'll come back next week and
Great. Yeah, check it out next week, see if it works for you. And I think everyone else has signed up. Is that right, everyone? Graham?
May I suggest you ask Yigal what his prospects or plans are?
Yigal, right.
Yeah.
Were you interested in taking the training as well? Sorry, I didn't.
Yes, but then I'm not sure that the day and the time is good for me, because it's these days my grandson's birthday.
Well, we have another cafe next week. If you come back, you can check it out, and it gives you 2 weeks to sort of decide.
Sorry?
Oh, you'll have 2 weeks. You can, if you'd like to come back next week, if check it out again, and if you, then you could.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay.
We'd love to have you take part. So, okay, well, that's it. We're 3 minutes over. So we'd like to end with our jazz hands before you take off. Look forward to seeing you next week or any of the other cafes. And there we go. Great. So thanks so much for taking part. And if the facilitators could stay back just for a little bit of a debrief, appreciate that. So see you next time.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.